Well, here's our economics editor, Robert Peston.
The magnificent kelpies, symbols of Scotland's ancient folklore and its modern culture, and they cost a bob or two. As did Edinburgh's trams. As does transport in general. As do its care homes. But how do Scotland's public spending and revenue numbers compare with the rest of the UK? Well, according to the respected Institute for Fiscal Studies, spending on public services and welfare is £1,300 for each person higher in Scotland than the UK average. But the amount raised in taxes, including from the North Sea, is £205 per head lower in Scotland than in the UK as a whole. That means if the subsidy or block grant from the rest of the UK were to come to an end, the deficit in Scotland would be 4.6 percentage points higher in Scotland than in Britain as a whole, and there'd be a £7.6 billion hole in its finances. So what choice would be faced by Westminster and Edinburgh if Nicola Sturgeon's wish was granted and she got total control over taxing and spending?
One option would be that Scotland would have to fund its own spending itself, and that would mean spending cuts or tax rises to the tune of £7.6 billion. Or the Scottish Government could argue the UK Government has to continue to make up that difference even though Scotland is keeping all its own revenues, which could be politically difficult in the context of debates in England and Wales.
But if the oil price recovered and tax revenues from oil increased again, that £7.6 billion Scottish hole would shrink a bit. And if the Scottish Government's control over its finances gave some oomph to the economy, well, it would collect more of these from taxes, and the deficit would diminish as a share of Scotland's income or GDP.
The main thing that fiscal autonomy would do for Scotland, it would mean we could put a strategy in place to grow the economy. And that would deal with the deficit in two ways. First of all, growth in the economy is more tax revenues, and secondly, it means that we can reduce spending in some of the areas that are necessary during the recession.
The recent eclipse as seen from Shetland. Now there's a shadow over the future of Scotland and its finances, and the way that light eventually breaks through may determine the election performance of the SNP and also the next government of Britain. Robert Peston, BBC News.